Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the city's Communications and Marketing Department. And today we're going to talk about a really unique and special part of town, which is Phoebus. My guest is Keith Cannady from the Planning Department. Welcome.
Thank you, Robin. Good to be here.
Phoebus it's just unique, you know. It still sometimes feels like it's its own separate town, not quite a part of the rest of the city. But it has different characteristics and a really special vibe. Do you want to describe that for people who aren't as familiar?
It does. I'll give it a try. Certainly the folks who live there and own businesses there can do a much better job of it. But it really does still have, and once was, its own little town. And I think that's a source of a lot of its charm. You know, you've got a lot of independently owned businesses. You've got a lot of families who've been there for a long time and really cherish and treasure the community. And that comes through. You know, when they talk about it, and when you drive through it, it has the sort of the physical structure of an old Main Street, you know, which are common all over Virginia. Less common perhaps in the Hampton Roads area, the more built-out metro area. So that also makes it special. You're right in the middle of a big metropolitan area, but you get that feeling of being in a small town. So it's very much something that people talk about as what makes it so special, and something we'll have to think about preserving, you know, as it changes over time, continues to change over time.
Right. People feel very strongly about that, even though they want more economic opportunities and some other things to happen. So you are helping to lead this process of updating a master plan for Phoebus. Now tell us again what a master plan is and why the city does that.
Well, several years ago, the city realized that we're kind of built out in terms of our land area. And there's some areas that are going to change more than others, some areas that are more challenged than others, some areas have more opportunities than others. So the decision was made, let's focus on those areas. Let's focus our resources. Let's focus the community's attention on those areas like downtown, Buckrow, Coliseum Central, because that's where we can make the most happen. You know, and Phoebus was just a natural fit for that because of its history, because of the changes that were going on in the community. So it was an approach that we took back then, and I think we've been very successful with it. You know, there's so much of the city is very stable, going to be that way for a long time, potentially the single-family neighborhoods. They're not going to change a whole lot over time. They need a certain amount of care and maintenance, but particularly the commercial areas. As we all know, retail trends change very, very quickly, and so you need to be more on top of those key strategic areas, which is the approach that we took, and many communities take the same one. And Phoebus was a natural fit, you know, for that type of area. Okay,
and Phoebus's master plan is relatively recent. It's 5 or 6 years old.
It is. It was adopted back in 2007, but as we've said, there's quite a bit that's changed since 2007. But it went through
actually, it's not that much that's changed, but they've been big changes. And one is the recession, and one is the closure of Fort Monroe as an Army base.
Yeah, the realization that the fort's going to close, and particularly huge for Phoebus because the more you learn about the history of Fort Monroe in Hampton and Phoebus in particular, they just kind of grew up together. I mean, Phoebus has really always kind of been there because of Fort Monroe, and changed as Fort Monroe has changed over the years. And so Fort Monroe is going through its biggest change in history.
Right.
You know, so clearly Phoebus is going to have to change accordingly, you know, and fit in with the changes that occur at Fort Monroe. So that was a really big change for the community. Everybody is affected by the downturn in the real estate market, and a big part of Phoebus's future is going to be private investment in the real estate market. So that's a big deal too, you know. So being patient and seeing ourselves through that process, I think, is part of what we're confronting out there. But the other big change, and a very positive change, was the designation of Fort Monroe as a national monument, and really recognizing the huge historical events that took part on that property. And Phoebus is really a part of that. It's always been a part of that. So that was a big boost, I think, for the community as well, is recognizing its historic place in the community and really in the nation in the developments that occurred at Fort Monroe. So those are a lot of things that big things, as you said, that have happened recently, and I think everyone realized, well, now's a good time to go back and look at what we did in 2007 and see if we're still on the right track. And I think most people think we are, but we want to make sure, so we redone our market studies, our real estate market studies, to make sure we're on track. And we're looking at particularly what role Phoebus might play as what we describe as a gateway community. In other words, if you're the place that people drive through to get to a national monument, how does that change your community? How does it change the customers that are coming through, the types of people that are coming through? And let's get ready for that. So it's a real opportunity.
Exactly, because if you look at the types of communities that are right outside a lot of our national parks, you'll find that they have outfitters and retail stores that support the outdoors experience or the history, depending on what that park offers. And the unusual thing about Fort Monroe is it's really got an equal dose of history and natural beauty and outdoors experiences.
Incredible recreational opportunities that you really couldn't get to in the recent past because of the tighter security that was on all military bases. You couldn't get to the pier quite as easily, the beach and the boating opportunities, the marina that exist on Fort Monroe. And now, of course, that's all possible. So you've got those opportunities at Fort Monroe, you've got them at Buckrow, you've got them to some degree at Phoebus. So they all kind of fit together. And that's a new purpose. It's a new mission, a new vision really for Phoebus that didn't exist before, and a real source of opportunities.
Well, you also have this confluence where there used to be two business and civic groups,
yes,
and they're coming together and working together, and
yes,
I think that helps provide a little bit more unified vision,
yes,
and ability to really get on the same table and move forward.
We're really excited about that. That just sort of happened to come through right about the same time. The Partnership for a New Phoebus had its first meeting just a couple months ago, and so they're very excited about these changes, and really seem to be coming together and are prepared to work together, to realize the opportunities that are coming their way. So
you've had this first round of public meetings, and what really did the public say they were looking for Phoebus, or they wanted?
Right. Well, we heard good things about the plan and the general direction that the plan was taking, and also a sense that we don't want to start over with the plan. We've worked hard on it. We've come together on some key recommendations.
And tell us just what those were a little bit, the recommendations for particularly, Mallory and Mellon and the commercial areas.
The plan really focused on those, what we call infill development opportunities, the property that the city has either acquired or that private owners are looking for the next use. So we started to recommend uses for those properties together with the property owners in the community, and reached a lot of agreement on where should new housing go, where should new commercial go, what should that commercial look like. So that was really the focus of that plan. And again, pretty good agreement on what it should be, and still quite a bit of agreement. So it was really kind of focused on what I'll call redevelopment, reuse, infill development opportunities for the community. So we think we're pretty close to where we need to be on that. What we heard at the community meetings was, can we make it happen a little faster, of course, which is true, I think, in all communities.
I think it is. Especially now, there's just this pent-up demand.
Right, we want these good things to happen as quickly as possible. So we heard a little bit of that. I think we also heard that what we call the gateways to the community. Now that we're getting people coming to Phoebus from, in many cases, outside of Hampton, maybe outside of the region, they've heard about this national monument, they've heard about these recreational opportunities on Fort Monroe. We're getting a new visitor to our area. What are they seeing, particularly when they drive through Phoebus, when they get off of the interstate at Mallory Street? Are we kind of putting our best face forward? The old front door theory, when you're trying to sell your house or market something, you want to put your best face forward, and maybe we can do better at that. Maybe property maintenance is something that we're hearing, public spaces and private spaces. Can we figure out a way to just present a better face to the community, maybe a truer face, that really says this is a community that cares about its future, that it's investing in itself. So gateways, property maintenance, were some of the things that we heard about. The ability to...
and that's a challenge when you have older buildings.
It is a
but
challenge.
Part of what Phoebus
Yeah,
wants to be is to retain those older buildings and to keep the character. But yes, some of them do need to be a little spruced up.
Yeah. And that's it's both a property maintenance challenge and to some degree sort of a regulatory challenge. You know, we write building codes and ordinances for new buildings, for example.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to retrofit.
You've got to figure out a way to keep what you really love about those old historic buildings, but make them safe, make them meet a public safety standard for today's regulatory climate. And we can do that. That's happening all over the country. But there's a little bit of a gap perhaps that we need to close to get there, you know, so that private investors who are seeing this beautiful old building and have a great idea of what to do with it can do what they want to do in a way that complies with all state and federal and local codes to get in those buildings. Many of those properties qualify for important income tax credits if you restore the building in a certain way. So property owners are finding, I'm hearing from the National Park Service, for example, on how they would like my building restored so I can take advantage of these tax credits. But I'm also hearing from the city of Hampton about how they would like my building restored to meet building code requirements. So one of the things we want to do is get those things together so that the property owner is hearing the same thing. So they're not sort of being pulled in different directions and we're all kind of on the same page, and getting them restored to meet the historical integrity of the building as well as just getting them up and running as a business. So
there have been some successes in Phoebus recently, I think. I mean, the American Theater expansion really anchors that district. Six is wonderful. There's the pub that's opened. I mean, there's a lot going on, but there has been a certain amount of turnover.
And there always is in retail, but you know, I know that I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised. I think our whole team was when we started meeting the businesses out there and working through the partnership. We did a lot of one-on-one interviews with businesses and property owners who were very, very excited about their business. A lot of new folks were coming in and taking a second look, you know, at the community. So there's a certain amount of energy there and a certain amount of realizing that there's a new opportunity out there. So it's very exciting to see that.
Beyond the commercial areas, what are people saying about the residential? Because there's a bit of a mix there, and some houses that probably aren't up to standards.
We have some of the same building and property maintenance issues on the housing side as well. I mean, it's again, it's that traditional Main Street setting where your commercial and our uses are generally along Mellon and Mallory, but when you get back into the back blocks, very walkable single family and multifamily residential. So it's a really, really nice combination, but some of the same challenges with restoring older buildings, meeting building code and property maintenance requirements, but some of the same opportunities as well. I mean, everybody wants to walk to a coffee shop. Everybody wants to be able to potentially walk to work.
Right. You know, or bike, you know, Sam,
bike
I mean,
around.
Snow's bike shop is right there too.
Yeah. And now that you've got the recreational opportunities that are so close by and so available, clearly it's going to be a strong residential market as well. You know, so some of the same challenges, but our consultant has just sort of reconfirmed you've got a great location for housing as well. I mean, and again, you're in a big metro area. You're close to big employers. You're close to access off of 64.
You're right there at the interstate.
You're
right between
interstate.
Fort Monroe and downtown.
Right. So you've got a lot of locational advantages there as well. So we're coming out of this really positive of what the opportunities are. We'll have to be careful about the choices we pick and patient, but I think there's a lot of real potential there.
So what are the next steps in this master plan update process?
We're wrapping up sort of what we call the explore phase, where we talk to a lot of property owners and business owners and kind of do our homework on understanding what's going on in the community and getting prepared to go back out on November 8th, a Thursday evening, and lay out some ideas kind of based on what we've heard. You know, what are the things that are the most important to go forward with right now? You know, we know the long-term vision and goals. What can we do in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that'll be very important to kind of make those long-term benefits really happen? So we'll roll those out at a meeting, get some feedback from folks, and then develop those a little bit further and move towards adoption of a revised plan towards the end of this year or early 2013.
That's good timing. I know if we can wrap those things up as the market begins to pick up and as opportunities really materialize, we'll be ready.
We'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Keith, is there anything I've forgotten to ask you?
You know, the only other thing I can think about, Robin, is we're doing this at a time when a lot of planning is going on at Fort Monroe, and a lot of planning is going on at the Park Service. And sometimes it might be confusing to folks, it is to me, whose plan and what's going on. We want to just reassure people that we're working closely with the Park Service and the Fort Monroe Authority. We've all agreed that we need to compare notes. We need to work together as we all work on these plans for the future of this really wider area, because we all win, you know, if we can complement and work together. So that may be the other message. These other planning efforts are going on, and we encourage people to participate in those as well.
And just a reminder for folks out there, these meetings do happen in person, and that's really the best way to have that give and take.
It is.
But as much as possible, we're going to share this information on the internet, and people will have other ways, you know, if they can't make the meeting, to find out what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And most of this is going to be on our website or other agencies' websites. So stay tuned and take a second look is kind of what I would encourage people to do at Phoebus in the nearby area. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Thanks. And thank you. I hope you will take a second look at Phoebus.